so that we know what we're.
Also, you want to get into the mindset of creating hypotheses in your, like when we do actual
Look at that.
things. Yeah, you want to like create hypotheses, and when you ask questions, make sure you know why you're asking them, if they relate to what you're thinking.
So we do a lot of role play.
Yeah, we do.
Where you'll be therapist and you'll be client, and that's what she's referring to.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna ask a question, have in mind why you're asking the question. Something should already be from a theory that you learned in Intro to Psych. Those theories come to play in this class. Because why am I asking this question? What would Freud think? What would Adler think? What would Jung think? And so we're pulling on theories so that we can ask questions and try to guide the session. So that's what she's referring to.
An administrative note, just remember that, you know, the Blackboard, all the things that have to be done on Blackboard are on there. So you look on week 1, and this week you only have an assignment. We don't have to worry about discussions.
Bless you.
Bless you. But you just have that one assignment that you have to use APA style, references and citations, and it's due by Sunday. Okay? So Monday we come in, and we grade.
Right. So the Blackboard, same deal. So it's industrial and organizational psych. So on Thursday, yes.
Sorry. Maybe you could do a better job than me. I was explaining to Andrew what industrial organizational psychology is.
So it is the psychology of working within organizations, okay? So there are a lot of different personalities in an organization, and working and the ability to perhaps create teams so that people can work well together. One of the assignments I believe that you're gonna have this semester is doing a personality test. I think there's one that's type A and type B. Are you familiar with type A and type B personality styles? So a type A personality style is someone that's like OCD, likes everything in order, super strict, always timely. And then a type B personality style is someone who's more laid back. They might stroll into work, they go and get their coffee. So you can imagine if you have a boss that's a type B, and an employee that's a type A, how that can clash. The employee might go crazy, think that the boss is incompetent, and that can cause a problem, okay? So there are different personality tests that you're probably gonna be doing in the course. I'll check. I know that there's one on type A and type B. There might be one on...
like for us to take them?
For you guys to take,
that's cool.
yes.
That's awesome.
And so an organizational psychologist will have employees and employers work together so that they understand the other person's viewpoint.
Yes.
So if you're, you need to come in? Oh, okay. Is that for today? Yeah. Oh, okay. So if you're working on a team of people, and there's different ways to look at this. So type A and type B is just one example. There's a personality style that's actually created from Jungian analysis, where you get a 4-letter code, and some people are introverts, some people are extroverts. So imagine if you're an introvert working with an extrovert, how that can clash. But if you know each other's skills, if you know on the team who has more of the extrovert personality, what type of job will you give that extrovert if you're working in a team?
Well, it depends if it's sales or like, I don't know, management.
Exactly. So you were saying how you went for this interview and they're saying, oh, you're really good for sales because you have an extrovert temperament. If you have an introvert temperament, then you might be better behind the scenes or doing paperwork or administration stuff that you're just, doing paperwork and clerical things. And so we need to know our skills, and we need to be good managers to know what our people are good for. So an industrial organizational psychologist helps to teach management or executives where to use the skills of their different people. Anyone ever see the show Billions Okay, great show. So it's a show where they're stockbrokers. So imagine, very type A, they've got a lot, they're hedge fund, it's a hedge fund. Very type A, have to make a lot of money, are constantly on the computer. Well, they have, what was that?
Like a lot of timelines. Like
A lot, exactly, everything is timely, you know, the market opens and closes and they have to make all these $1 million deals or $1 billion deals. Well, they have a therapist in the office and she is constantly talking to the employees when they're feeling their performance is low or if they're feeling that they get reprimanded by the boss, and she's on staff to sort of work with the different personality styles. So it's not very typical, but that's one way where you would have our profession in an organization. So we really try in organizational industrial psych that the different personalities work well and that you really, that executives, management can really utilize the personalities for, bless you, for the best possible role. And sometimes you're really, really good at something and that's where you should be placed even though you want to do a different thing. So when I was in grad school, I wanted to work in the lab. I was doing dietetics as my master's degree, and I wanted to be in the lab. So people that work in the lab are doing science, like real science. And my boss, my major professor, had to tell me, Frances, you're not made for that. You are an applied scientist. You're a people person. You're someone to take that research that those lab people do and write about it and talk about it. So she got me a job going around the state of Florida training other coaches about nutrition. So she saw my assets as a speaker and she knew that I wasn't a lab junkie. She knew I would have gone crazy just sitting there, Lord knows what, with rats in a lab coat. And so it takes skill to see what strengths and weaknesses people have and saying, no, you're going to be a real good asset in this department, you're going to be a real good asset in that department. My daughter applied for a job at Disney, and they loved her. And they said to her, you would be really good at merchandising. And they emailed her a few weeks ago, we're still interested in you. As soon as a merchandising job opens, you will get it. But they know, the industrial psychologist, the way that they have formed, the way they have trained their people is to know what personality style is going to benefit and do best for the company in what area. And I thought that was so great because it's not just, oh, you're a great personality for Disney, here's a job. No, it's for the employee to succeed as much as for the company to succeed.
Now I understand why some or most companies now do those tests of
when you have to get hired, they have you do personality profiles. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, they're trying to see, that's part of an implementation of an industrial psychologist. So it's one of the many fields that we can work in. And it's kind of cool because you really get to decipher, you know, what strengths people have and where they would best be suited for in the company. Okay, does that help explain what it's about? Okay. So on Thursday, we were talking about rescuer, victim, perpetrator. This is super, super important. So this morning I had a client and she says to me, you know, I noticed I'm not in the victim role, but she pointed out to someone else in her circle of friends. She goes, oh my God, she was such a victim. And it's important that we can identify that these three roles exist. And with clients, that we educate them that if they're not in victim, they could be in perpetrator, or they can be in rescuer, okay? And I've said before that by virtue of us being in this field, in the helping professions, we're naturally what? Rescuers, okay? So my son's girlfriend comes over the other day and she's telling me this whole story about her family and her parents. And I said, you know, the problem is that you have been placed in a rescuer role in the middle of your parents' relationship. How many of you have been the peacemaker in your family, or the rescuer, or have to be the parent to your parent. Many of you, okay? That's one of the commonalities for people that are drawn to the helping professions, especially therapists, okay? So what does this do in the psyche of a child?
Makes you grow up faster.
Okay, definitely you can
You
grow
take on the
faster.
adult role.
You take on the
lose.
adult role.
Yeah.
So remember, we've got mother, father, child, okay? So you're in a child relationship with someone, or you can be adult, adult, adult. You're not supposed to be in an adult, adult, adult triad when you're 6 or 8 years old. Okay, so who ends up being the child?
Parent.
The parent.
Look at us all answering.
I know, it's wonderful. Now, as we get older in our romantic relationships, our professional relationships, we want to be adult, adult, adult. So what is the defining factor in these relationships? When the parent is the child or the child is the adult?
The adult has the dependency on the child.
Okay, so there's a dependency. What else?
There's some kind of confusion, like when you're in your own relationship, about what role to play.
Absolutely. Major confusion as to the role to play. Very good. What else?
Decision making.
Okay, what about it?
Validation. Because.
Okay, validation if you give the child what they need, meaning your parent. So you absolutely give validation.
You're validating them, they're not validating you.
Absolutely. You're left unvalidated, unmet needs. What were you saying, Paula?
The decision making in the sense that maybe the mother or the father doesn't know what to do with the child, and so the child, they leave him be, and the child makes now his own.
Okay, absolutely. And what happens when a child is the one making the decisions?
No, exactly. You create
One
them
of
to
us.
be us.
Yeah, one
us.
of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So James isn't here, our poster boy for wanting to make decisions,
Yeah.
but you want to make the decision. I was watching the show Lucifer,
Oh my
and
God, I love
isn't
it.
it so good?
Beautiful.
And the Maze goes to the therapist, and she's like, "Tell me what to do."
Yeah.
And the therapist is like, "No, that's not the way this works." But how many people are like, "Tell me what to do"? Very, very common. And if we're not aware of this, we may be very easily swayed and caught into, well, do this, this, and this, and this. It doesn't mean that that's not part of the role of what we do. Does not mean that we don't give advice and that we don't supply options. That is one of the roles as a therapist, but we have to be very careful that we're not making the decisions. Because then what happens if our client doesn't make the decision?
He's not taking responsibility.
No personal responsibility,
No growth.
no
No
growth,
exactly.
blame.
Blame.
Okay, so we have to watch out for those things. What else happens when you're in a relationship with a child?
The child thinks he or she has all the authority.
The other person. So that's exactly right. If your mom or dad is behaving like a child,
Yeah.
who has the authority?
The child.
The child does, and that's not supposed to be.
Right.
Absolutely. Very good.
Isn't that also manipulation?
It can be.
It can.
It absolutely can be manipulation because you learn to manipulate to be in authority. This happens a lot with parents and children that have the Oedipus complex. Okay? These wrong alliances. Very, very common. So the Oedipus complex or the Electra complex is when it's the daughter has to do with, oh, I'll manipulate the parent that I have the alliance with, but then we're pushing the other parent away.
That's my oldest. Yeah, that's my
so what does that do to the child? That now you and dad aren't in unification.
They try to get what they want because they manipulate the situation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do we as therapists ever manipulate?
Of course.
Always. We always manipulate. Sometimes we manipulate for the client's favor. Sometimes we manipulate for our own. Okay, and we have to be very, very aware of that. But we absolutely manipulate because we're planting seeds and we're saying, consider this, or what about this, or have you thought about that? So yes, manipulation is one of the things, but it's harmless in the sense that we're trying to open up avenues for clients. But you can absolutely manipulate a client for your own sort of doing if you don't keep that in check. Okay? So it's very, very important that we recognize that all of us grew up where we were either the child and behaving like a child with the adult, which was more healthy, but we did these things, or we were placed in an adult role. And many therapists were placed in an adult role, where the parents were the children and the child believes now that they have some control over the situation. What kind of personality disorder could this create?
An OCD one, I think.
Okay, why OCD? You're not wrong. That's not the one I was thinking of, but
I think OCD because they now know, you know, pretty much how a household is founded on, I guess you can say.
okay.
They had to make the decisions for
Okay,
them.
they had to make decisions,
So-
therefore they're in control, like Nicole said, and if you're in control, you don't want that control taken from you. So yes, you can absolutely develop OCD,
And they think that they're better than everyone.
which is what?
Um,
What personality disorder?
That's
That's the one I'm
stuck.
thinking
Yeah.
of.
That is the Hercules complex.
Well, it's the narcissistic
Yeah.
personality disorder.
There.
And I'm not saying,
Just saying.
That's a way to put it.
I'm not saying that all therapists have narcissistic personality disorder as diagnosed. I'm just saying that there are threads. Because if you are put in a position where you think, oh my God, I can make this person feel better, then all of a sudden you think you have some power that you don't really have. So my mom, I think I've shared this story before, my mom's like her jaw used to like, shift and get all clenchy and stuff. And I would notice that was a problem. And I would be like, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? And I was talking to my son's girlfriend about this the other day, and she's like, oh my God, I do the same thing. And so I would badger my mom until she would break down and talk to me. And so she'll say to today, she'll be like, tú siempre has sido mi terapista, you've always been my therapist. No! No, that's what got us into this mess. I don't want to be your therapist. And I have to be very clear that I cannot be. I have to keep that in check because that's part of what got me sick. So I would badger her, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? And finally, she'd break down and she would tell me. So here, she felt better just because she had somewhere to share. And as a child, I interpreted that as, oh, I am actually in control of someone's emotions and feelings. Look at me. I must have some special skill. There's my narcissism. So we have to keep that in check. So all of these things is what binds us together, usually in the helping professions, but specifically in this profession, okay? So we have to also be careful that with our clients, we don't get into this role. It's very easy in this role to become the parent to the client. Now there are times where where that is necessary. There are times where you are acting as the parent and giving permission. I had a client last week, and she needed permission to do something, and that was my role. And that is one of the many, bless you, one of the many roles that we have. Because if parents are so strict, or parents are always saying no, then the person may not have permission. We had a guest a few weeks ago where she was told everything was bad. And I was like, go ahead, have a great time, go party at school. She'd never been given permission to do anything other than, my God, God is watching. So there are times that we will behave that way. And remember, if every person, place, thing, or situation is your mother or your father, as a therapist, you are too.
That happened to me yesterday because my friends had invited me to go ride jet ski. And I had never, ever gone on a jet ski. And I call my mom and I tell her, Mom, I'm going to go. She goes, no, you're not. I go, excuse me? She goes, like, you can't go. You're going to die. This is going to happen. Yo no estoy pa another headache. It's not something that is necessary for you to do. And I'm like, well, why not? And I went and I had a blast. Like,
Awesome. I'm so happy you went. But listen, yo no estoy para another headache. I'm not in the mood for a headache. And she made it about her. Who makes everything about them? The child. And so now you're in this child-child transaction with your mom. What made you say, I'm going? What made you take the adult stance to go?
I wanted to go.
But there are things that you wanted to do before that you haven't done that she hasn't wanted you to do. What was different this time?
I've been feeling depressed and I felt like it was a way out, like a way that I could have fun and that I could distract my mind.
Okay, excellent. But you made a choice. Were you aware of the consequences? Did she find out?
Of course, I told her and I told her.
Oh, you did tell her. Excellent. Okay. Because sometimes we have to educate clients. Are you aware of the consequences? And be okay with the consequences. That's the adult choice and taking personal responsibility. And then what did she say? You told her after the fact.
Yeah.
And what did
she
she
was
say?
calling me and I didn't answer the phone, so she was worried. And I told her, Mom, I went. And she was like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. There's a lot of accidents that happen. If something happens to you, then I have to deal with that because of an immature choice that you made that you didn't have to do. It's like, oh, why not? She was like, next time you're not going. I'm still gonna go.
Worry about
you
next
will.
time.
Yeah, exactly.
Next time you'll go. You already went.
Next time you'll be on that jet ski.
That, you know, that relationship of child-child. And part of what happens with Shayla is that her mother treats her like a child all the time.
Okay, so I have a question, right?
Yes.
I am absolutely terrified, and Nicole knows this, of smoking in my back patio during the day. Just for the simple fact, and she was there that day.
We had to
and
clean up the ashes off the
I
table
was
and
like,
everything.
yeah, I was like so anal because since I moved back in with her, she specifically specified only at night you can smoke. I don't want you smoking during the day. Because she has the what are the neighbors gonna say or think, right? So I've been smoking, like she doesn't know, but I've been smoking, but every time my anxiety, right? My fucking anxiety kicks in and I'm like, shit, if she walks in, where the fuck, like what am I gonna do if she walks in and I'm smoking like that? So I started putting in my head, what's the worst she can do? Kick you out? She already has kicked you out. Like, I mean, and point blank. Smoke your damn cigarette, relax, and don't worry about if she walks in.
Okay.
So, I'm seeing myself in the child position right
Yes.
there. And she, I hate the fact that I guess she has some sort of power over me. I hate it.
And that's a really good way to look at it.
Yeah.
So we did this activity here. Come two people.
Okay.
Come two people, just come up.
With chairs or without?
No, just, this is quick, just to demonstrate.
Since Shayla's not standing up. Fine.
So, one of you sit on the chair,
Yeah, 1 second.
My legs are sore.
and then Paula, you come here, and now I want you guys to just have a conversation about anything. And this is hard because she's so tiny, but get on your tippy toes like if you're taller.
Oh, bring her chair down.
Or bring your chair down, yeah. Perfect,
Okay.
okay. So now just talk about anything.
How's life right now? I mean, with the whole smoking thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't give a shit anymore. Even though I say I don't, I really do. But
I know you do.
yeah, you
But
know
you still
me,
want
like,
that damn
so
cigarette.
I'm like, yo, I'm
As long as you
gonna
clean the
outside with my
ashes, you're
damn
good.
cigarette. Exactly. As long as I don't leave any.
Oh, and the
imprint
plastic
or
bottle.
anything. Yes.
Yes,
that's why
yes,
I
yes.
gotta go
Throw
it
them
out,
away so she
go.
doesn't know there's too much.
Yeah.
Okay, now flip,
Okay.
and you stand, and continue the conversation.
Okay.
So what's going on with you and smoking?
I'm out of weed, that's the problem.
So how you been feeling?
Anxious.
Anxious? You're not taking the meds, right?
No, I don't take anxiety meds.
I
don't need it.
I'm still sticking to my meds.
Nope, I'm working out in place of taking medication.
Which is good.
Yeah.
And you've lost weight.
I know this.
Yes.
Okay, now stand up and talk.
These are the basis of our conversations.
That's perfect.
Most of the time.
Now,
Okay.
just eye to eye.
She's kind of short though.
Um,
So you should join my workouts.
I should.
It'll take you off the
I'm
anxiety
gonna-
meds.
Yeah, I'm gonna start working out. Like, I'm gonna go little by little. I started walking, but because Jay's out of school, I have to
Like that walk to the pool, that was like super
Oh
hot
my
and long.
god, yes.
And I'm pretty much turning black because of the sun.
But
Yes.
it's okay. We want that.
We do, we really do. Next time we'll be in our bathing suits tanning.
So what do you feel, you guys can go back to your
Okay.
chairs. What do you feel when you're sitting, I'll take that.
Oh, you're
When you're sitting, looking up at her, talking to her?
What do I feel? I
Yeah.
feel comfortability. I feel. Oh well, like, are you talking about
Maybe
how
because
I
we-
express myself or looking up at?
Yeah,
her?
just looking up at her.
I don't feel anything really. Like, I don't feel.
What about looking down?
Looking down, I look down mostly is for shame.
Okay.
When I feel like I'm doing something wrong or I've said something wrong,
Okay.
I tend to turn away or look down. Or,
I don't think she's understanding
Well,
what you're saying.
what did you feel when you were looking up or looking down at
I
her?
was trying to reach her level, but I couldn't.
Okay.
Like, I'm trying to be on the same, like, plane as her, but she felt like, it felt like she was, like, higher than me, in a way. Not
Okay.
taller, but, like, higher.
Higher. Okay,
Yeah.
so when you're feeling exactly that, that's what children feel. They're like sitting down here and parents are high up and they're oftentimes scolding them with the finger. But you're right, looking down at something might be, I'm ashamed.
yeah.
Okay, so keep that in mind when you're thinking of the adult and child transaction. So you're feeling like a child because what can happen? Your mom can come in
Yeah.
and scold you.
And remember, I've always told you how I've had to stop her with the whole pointing.
Mhm.
Yeah, with the
The-
whole, I've had to.
The other thing that we learned, and this is the exercise that he was trying to tell you, is when, in order to have an adult conversation, not a child parent, adult conversation, you have to be eye to eye. So like when your mother's trying to tell you something and she's over you, she's trying to use her parental authority. It doesn't matter whether you're 55 or 30, you know. She wants to have that authority. So one of the things you could try is say, if we're going to talk, sit down and sit together eye to eye so she can tell you what she wants to tell you, and then you're willing to listen if she's willing to talk to you like an
But
adult.
see,
But sometimes
With
I
my
just
That
mom-
position, and that's called
Yeah.
the leveling position.
Right.
where everyone's a level.
I feel like sometimes she takes on the child persona. Like, for example, with the whole gay thing with my brother, she stopped talking to us for a while and was leaving letters. I thought that was
Very
childish
child.
as heck.
Very, very
And she
child.
would come in and lock herself in her room.
Right, and that's
I'm
what
like-
kids do.
You know what?
Oh,
If
and
she-
slam the door and everything.
Oh no, yeah. And
I'm
the
mad.
thing is that she tries, or maybe she's not trying, but maybe she's giving us a taste of our own medicine of what we do to her, in a sense. That's what I feel, because me and my brother always, I'm in the living room, I really don't care, but my brother's always stuck in his room.
But where
So-
did you learn that?
I learned that from, well, growing up, I was also always stuck in my room because I
Right, but
didn't
we
want to
learned that
deal
from
with.
our parents.
Right, yeah.
We
I
learned
didn't
that from our
feel-
parents. I hated that my mother gave me the silent treatment, and then I